Hi, everyone. Welcome to Film Literature, the class where we watch movies. Could you please close the back door for me? 帮我关一下后门. Thank you. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing this semester. Week 1, introduction, and then I'll start talking about the different filmmaking elements, but I'm not going to be able to finish today. So week 2, we're going to watch a movie, and then I'm going to keep talking. The movie is a classic French movie called Day for Night. I know this is an applied English department. We are going to watch every other movie will be in English, but this one movie will be in French. And it's because I could not find a movie in English that does exactly the same thing. Day for Night is a movie about making movies, and it covers basically every single aspect of filmmaking in 1973. From the planning and the story and the acting and the camera work, the editing, special effects, the whole thing. And there's no movie in English that does everything. So we're going to watch a French movie. If your first language is not French or Chinese, I will provide double subtitles. So the Chinese subtitles will be on the bottom. The English subtitles will be on the top. So you can also follow along. After the film, week 2, I'll continue talking, and I'm going to be talking about two special genres of film, documentaries and animation. I forgot to add animation, but we're also going to be talking about animation. Week 3, we're going to watch another movie. 1973, that was a long time ago. Things have changed. So week 3, we're going to watch a documentary called Side by Side about the digital revolution in filmmaking. Now that we have these fancy digital tools, how do filmmakers make movies today? Um, but we still need to watch how they did it in the past because Side by Side focuses on the changes. But if you don't know what it used to be like, you won't understand how it has changed. And then after the documentary, I will divide you into small groups. And the small groups have two purposes. One, after that, every week we're going to watch a movie, and then afterwards we're going to discuss it in small groups. Um, Here's how that's going to look. We're going to watch a movie. I'll try to be on time every week. It's kind of hard because I have class in the morning also. But anyway, I'll try to be on time. We're going to watch the movie, and then we're going to take a 10-minute break. And during that break, I'm going to write like 5 to 7 discussion questions. We'll decide on the specific number on week 3. And then in the rest of that week, you will discuss a question in your group. And then I'll go around talking with you, get your ideas, and I will share your ideas with the class. So that's the first function of the small groups. The second function is you are going to make a short film with your group members. And I'll talk about that a bit later. Um, film. So I have already chosen the films. I'm just keeping them as a surprise. Film 6 will be a long film. We have 3 hours. We might as well watch a longer film. And so film 6, week 8 will just be watching one movie. Week 9, we will then discuss that movie. And then I will introduce the midterm exam. The midterm exam is a 1-week take-home online open book exam. So you will do the exam at home between week 9 and week 10. And you'll just do that on Moodle. I'll talk a little bit about this later, but I will give you more details on week 9. Then the second half of the semester, we keep doing this. Week 12 will be a horror movie. I know not everybody likes to watch horror movies, so this is your warning. We do have to watch one because horror movies are very, very important to cinema. Only in a horror movie can you deal with specific themes and specific ideas. Only in a horror movie will the film try to get a certain kind of reaction from you, basically fear. So that's all worth talking about. And so we have to watch one. I also don't like horror movies, so I know how you feel, but we do have to do this. Week 10, I have chosen a film, but I encourage you to recommend a film that we can watch together. Um, the basic guidelines are it has to be under 130 minutes. It has to be in English, and I have to be able to find the movie and find Chinese subtitles. Um, Other than that, oh, also like please don't recommend like pornography or something illegal, you know. Other than that, feel free to make recommendations, and I will choose a movie to play um, on week 13. If nobody makes a recommendation or I can't find it or whatever, then we're going to watch the movie that I have chosen. Week 14 is another long movie. Week 15 is the discussion of that long movie. And the rest of that week will be given to you to finish up preparations for week 16. Week 16, your group will present your short film, and you will also help to grade the other group's short films. So I'll introduce the details of that later today. Weeks 17 and 18, no class, but you do have to write a set of course reflections. Questions about the schedule? Okay, so I told you I have already chosen these films, but most of these films I have not seen before. I feel like it would kind of be cheating if, I showed you films I already know about. And also, I just want an excuse to watch more movies. So we're going to experience most of these films for the first time together. I hope nothing bad happens. Okay, so that's the schedule. The grading percentages. Oh, I shouldn't have closed that. The grading percentages are midterm exam, 40%, final short film, 40%, and the course reflections, 20%. Okay, let's see what else we have on this Moodle page. Announcements. I'll try to give you the information you need to know in class, but if something comes up and I have to tell you immediately, I will post here and Moodle will give you an email. It will send you an email notification. So remember to check your email once in a while. Lecture recordings. You may have noticed I am recording. I will record the lecture part of each week and I will upload it to YouTube. And this is the YouTube playlist. I'm uploading it to YouTube because on YouTube, you can search the video. You can search inside the video. So like YouTube will produce an automatic transcript, a record of all of the words I'm saying. And you can open the transcript and then you can search inside the transcript. And if you find like a line that you want to hear again, you can click on that line and the video will jump to that location. So this YouTube video shows you how to do that. But the automatic transcript will not be as accurate as Microsoft Words. So there will be a little bit of difference. It should not be a big difference. Next, because the midterm exam is open book, I think you should be able to rewatch the films that we have seen in class to help you take the exam. So I will put all of the films we have watched up to the midterm exam in this online folder. But to save space after the midterm, I will only include the most recent two films. And they all include subtitle files. If you don't know how to add a subtitle file to a video file, this page tells you how to do that. This is the handout, which I will give you later, and then we're going to start talking about it. And then here are some extra materials. So if you want to learn about film and filmmaking in more detail, I have collected a number of YouTube videos on a wide variety of film subjects, and that is the playlist. Some of them have subtitles, some of them do not. They are all in English. This next one is an article in Chinese about the benefits of studying literature, and I think they also apply to studying films as well. So, if you're curious about why are we studying films in class and you can read Chinese, you can take a look at this. And then finally, if you want some pointers or suggestions for how to learn English better, this file has some of my suggestions for that, also in Chinese. Now, every week, after we finish watching the movie, after we finish discussing it, I will go home, and what I like to do is I like to read through some criticism and some uh, history of how they made the movie. So every week, I will read through that stuff and I will choose what I think is the most interesting article and I will post it on Moodle. Interesting does not always mean relevant. Interesting does not mean easiest to read. It's something that I think is fascinating. So that's considered extra material. If you want to learn more about the film or the reception of the film or ideas related to the film, you can wait for that. Now, because the first two movies, I already know what the movies are, so I have already uploaded what I think are the best articles about those movies. Yeah, so the first half, this will slowly be filled with articles and also with PowerPoints of the discussion questions as we move through the semester. Midterm exam, I'll give you the highlights now, and then we'll go through the details on week 9. But basically, I will be looking at um, the exam is an essay question, so I will be looking at your evidence and your logic. So you do have to write an English essay. It has to have paragraphs. It has to have more than one paragraph. And please do not itemize. Itemize means you write number 1, number 2, number 3, or like first point, second point, third point. Or even if you write this point, colon, that point, colon, that's all itemizing. Don't do that. You have to write an essay with paragraphs. And I will grade it according to the validity of your evidence and the logic of your answer. You must give I will assign a short film. So on week 9, I will show you a short film. I will tell you where you can find the short film, and your answer must be about this short film. You have to give specific examples from that short film, and you have to discuss at least 4 different filmmaking departments as defined in the handout. So again, we will see the handout a bit later. So like if you talk about acting 3 times, I will only count that as 1 point. Has to be 4 different points, 4 different parts of filmmaking. Um, if you don't answer the question, like if you misunderstand and you answer the wrong question, or you don't actually answer the specific question, if you answer it in the wrong format, such as you don't use English, or you give a list of ideas instead of writing an essay, and or if I think that you only used AI, like you put the question into ChatGPT, you got an answer, you copied that, you pasted it into Moodle, and then you submit it. Or if you copy something from the internet and you don't tell me where you found it. All of these things will get you a 0. Now, some students think, in your answer, you probably want to talk about what is the short film about? What happens in the short film? So some students have told me they think, oh, for the introduction, for the summary, I just found it online and I copied it. It's okay because we're watching the same short film. It's not okay. Even for the introduction, even for the summary, you should use your own words to share what you think is happening in the short film. So the standard here is if I can tell where you found it and you didn't tell me where you found it, that is plagiarism, that's copying, and that's a 0. Now about the AI thing, like I'm not scared of AI. I love the thing. I use it every day. But you should be scared of AI because you don't know how much you can trust. If you knew how much you could trust, you wouldn't be taking this class. It knows more than you about films and filmmaking. So you can't tell if the answer is good or not, but I can. So if you use AI blindly, it's probably going to hurt you. And then finally, because I'm using Moodle's quiz format, it will not tell you when you receive a grade. You have to check yourself. I'm sorry. I hate this. This is the one limitation of Moodle. Everything else is great. I have asked our information center, is there a way to solve this? I have looked into how Moodle works. There's no way to solve this. So you have to check your score yourself. Now the good news is your score is here, grades. If you click here, you will see all of the scores that you have so far in the semester. Right? So uh, midterm exam, short film, course reflections, extra credit. Your course total is you just add up everything else, and the maximum is 100. So you can keep track of your score on Moodle. Okay, this is an article in Chinese about why plagiarism or copying is so bad. And I know that not everyone has experience writing essay questions. So here are some examples of answers to other essay questions. The information in these essays will not help you, but the format, the way that the answer looks, the way that the author writes those answers, hopefully can give you some pointers. I've also included a bad example. Like this is an example of what not to do. And I'll show you this in more detail on week 9. Okay, questions about the exam? Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll talk about that again. Second half, same thing. This will be filled up with PowerPoints and PDFs. Final group short film. So here are the basic rules. You must make a short film under 15 minutes. You can use any language or even more than one language, but you do have to have English and Chinese subtitles. When you're finished, upload the film to YouTube, and then on week 16, your group will come to the front. You will introduce your short film. We're going to watch it together, and then you will answer some questions about your short film from your classmates or from myself. Your grade will be determined partly by me and partly by your classmates. So within each group, you will have to fill in a peer review sheet for your own group and for all the other groups also. I'll talk about this in more detail. You know what? I'll talk about it now. Okay, so this is what the peer review sheet looks like. Your group number, the student numbers of your group members, the Chinese name, or if you have an international student, the English name of your group members. And then for each group member, give them a score from 1 to 5. 5 is the highest. Basically, the more that they contributed to the final to the group effort, the more that they did, the more that they contributed, the higher the score. So if a group member was a part of every single decision, helped every single part, always showed up, always did something, then you should give them 5. If a group member barely showed up, like came to one meeting and then disappeared, give them 1. If you have a group member who has never shown up, you don't even know what they look like, you can give them 0. But try not to give 0 unless you're absolutely sure they did nothing. Even if they came to a meeting and just like asked a question, give them a 1. The other half is other groups. On week 16, we're going to watch everybody's short film, right? So for every other group, list the group number and give each short film a score from 1 to 5. 5 is the highest. How should you grade uh, these short films? Based on creativity and quality. Are the ideas interesting? Are the not just what the film is about, but how they decided to do the film? Is that interesting? And is it good quality? Now, um, I'm not going to just take your scores and then put it in Moodle as your final score. For your own group members, I'm just going to look at this to see if there are any free riders, anyone who's not pulling their own weight. So even if you give somebody a 4 or maybe even a 3 with some explanation, the individual score may not change. But if you give a low enough score, I might think, this person didn't really do anything. They might get a lower score. For the other groups, um, your score, the average of everybody's score for one group will be 50%, and then my score will be 50%. Now, here's the thing. For some reason, students like to give low scores to other groups. Maybe they think it'll help their own group. I don't know. But if everybody gives everybody else a low score, the result is everybody gets a low score. Nobody is helped. So please don't be stingy about the score. Be generous. If you liked it a lot, even if it's not literally perfect, you can still give a 5. Be open. Support your classmates. So each person's final presentation score, the 40%, will be half my grade for your short film, half the class's grade for your short film, and then I'll see if you got a low internal group score, and if it was a low score, I will reduce your final score. Okay? Okay. Now, I introduce all of this now because making a film, even making a short film, takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. I'm saying this and you're thinking, okay, got it. I need to spend more time. No, it takes a lot of time. If you start today, you might be able to finish. Well, you can't start today. Sorry, you have to start on week 3 because I'm not going to divide you into groups yet. If you start on week 3, you should be able to finish. And to make sure everybody does file a peer review sheet, you have to submit this on the same day. Week 16 is June 5. You have to submit this the same day. And if you don't submit, I will reduce your score. Fill it out and then submit it here. And I will use this to give you your individual grade. And Moodle will tell you when I give you a grade. Finally, course reflections. After the course ends, you have to write a set of reflections. about uh, like what you learned from this class, and that's 20%. Finally, extra credit. If you feel like you want a higher score, you can do this. You can begin immediately. The deadline is week 18, so I will wait for you. But it's not easy. If you have done this before, please tell me and I will give you another article. Don't do the same article twice. Now, last semester, there was another option here, which is to write course reflections. But because this semester the reflections are already part of your score, that's not an extra credit option. So, try not to fail. But there is another extra credit option. It's a short film contest. Yes, the department is doing another short film contest this semester. The details have not yet been announced, but I do know that it is a little bit different from last semester. So once the details come out, I will tell you, and you have to follow all of the requirements for the contest. And if you make a short film that follows all of the requirements and you submit it, I will give you 10 points. I can already tell you one of the requirements will be you have to have a QR code for Minchuan University Department of Applied English. So if you want to do this, you probably cannot use the same short film. It's for two different purposes. If you try to use the same short film, one of those purposes will not be met. Either your grade will suffer, or I may say you didn't fulfill the requirements and you won't get these 10 points. Now, to support your efforts, the department has scheduled 2 lectures related to filmmaking, which is really great for us because you already have to make a short film. So hopefully you will benefit from these 2 lectures. The location has not yet been announced. I will tell you when the location comes out. Okay, that's Moodle. Questions? Okay, so for the rest of today, I'm going to be talking about this handout. So let me pass that out now. Does everyone have a copy? Anyone still need one? Are there more extras? Okay, great. So I think most of you have seen movies before, right? Don't laugh. One year, a student did tell me they've never seen a movie. So I just wanted to check. So you know what a movie looks like, and you know what it feels like to watch a movie, but maybe you have not thought about how to make a movie. And how to organize the effort to make a movie. So that's what this handout is about. The different filmmaking departments, organized roughly in order of importance, from more important to less important, although I shouldn't say that. They're all very important. And then some of the vocabulary related to each department that you might need. So when you watch a movie, you should remember one key point. Everything you see is a decision. Everything you see or hear or experience is the result of a human or more than one human making a choice. Film is literature in that sense. Just like something you read, it is an act of communication from humans to humans. Now, sometimes those decisions are to save time or to save money. That's fair. But a lot of the time, those decisions reflect some kind of idea or intention by the filmmakers. So think about this. When you see something on screen, where is it? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Is it indoors, but it looks outdoor? Is it in fact nowhere and it's completely CGI? What color is it? And I don't just mean like what color is the wall. What color is the image? Does the entire picture look a little light, a little dark? Does it look a little gray, a little blue, a little yellow? What do you see in the image? Is there a person? If there is a person, what do they look like? What kind of person are they? What are they wearing? What does their hair look like? What does their face look like? What are they doing with their body? Where are their hands? How are they standing? Where are they looking? Are they interacting with another person or with an animal or an object? Or are they just staring into space? Which person did they choose? What do you know about the actor? Are they famous? What have they done before? How old are they? What cultural background does it look like they're from? Choosing an actor is also a decision. Behind the actor, what's in this location? If it's indoors, everything is a design. What is the wall made of? What are the objects in the room? Where is the actor standing in this space? If it's outdoors, what kind of place is it? Is it light? Is it dark? Is it sunny? Is it rainy? Is it foggy? Can you tell? Is it in the city? Is it in the country? Is it in a car? Is it on a boat? Is it in space? Why? And then what are you not seeing? The image is a square or a rectangle, but the space is bigger than that. What are you not seeing? Why did the filmmakers decide to cut off that part? Why are we looking at this part? This question is connected with where is the actor? If you see a person in real life, there's no frame, right? The person is just there. But if you put them on an image, there is a relation between the person and the space of the image and the space outside of the image. Why? And that's just what you see. What about when the image starts to move? What's moving? Is the person moving? Is it their mouths? Are they talking? Are they doing something with their bodies? Are they walking from here to there? Are they running? Are they jumping? Are they hiding? Are they facing the camera? Are they turning away from the camera? Is the camera moving? Is it going up, down, left, right, in, out? Is it turning? Is it rotating? Is the color or the brightness or the darkness changing? Why? And then between movements, where does one scene end and another scene begin? What is the relationship between these scenes? If it is a chronological relationship, if the first scene happens first and the second scene happens next, what are we skipping in the middle? Why are we skipping it? Why does the next scene begin there and not earlier and not later? If the relationship is not chronological, what is the relationship? How are these two scenes related? And then finally, what do you hear? Is there music? Is there background noise? How do the actors sound when they talk? Does it sound like they're shouting in a real space, or are they recording their lines in a studio? When they move around or when objects move around, what sounds do you hear? Do you hear a door? Do you hear shoes? Do you hear the wind? Do you hear the rain? Why do you hear those sounds and not other sounds? If you listen closely in real life, there is always a sound. But you don't hear these sounds in movies. Why do you hear the sounds that you hear? Why don't you hear these other sounds? Every element is the result of a choice. And some of those choices, some of the ways that you get that result can be quite surprising. That's why we're talking about them. So let's begin at the top. Directing, headed by the director. This department is also called Video Village because now that we have digital technology, the director used to have to stand there and look at everything and then look at the camera and make sure things are okay. Now, with digital cameras, all of these cameras can send their image to video screens, and the director can just sit in the back and look at all of these screens. So it's also called Video Village. That's where the director sits and looks at all of these images, if the director wants to. The job of the director, there are two things that a director has to do. Second, let's start with the second one, is the director oversees the filmmaking process. Basically, every time somebody has a question about what should we do for this, what should we do for that, the director makes the final choice. The director cannot make every choice because there are a billion choices. But when there is a question and nobody can decide, it is the director who decides. And by using that authority, the director provides a vision for the film. The director, most of the time, will have an idea. What kind of movie do I want to make? What will it look like? What will it feel like? What do I want to say? But it's impossible to just download what's in your brain and then upload it to somebody else. So the director has to communicate those ideas as best as the director can. Now, in the process, other people will have other ideas. A good director will listen to what other people think from their own experiences, from their own knowledge base, and hopefully that will result in a better film. So the director is really kind of a high-level manager. They set the direction. They try to make you feel what they want the film to feel like. And then when questions come up, they answer those questions. But the director usually can't do that by themselves. So they will have assistants. And depending on how big this movie is, there will be a lot of assistants. But usually there will be at least two. The first assistant director helps manage the set, and the set is where the filming happens. Where the camera is, where the actors are acting, that space is called the set. So when the director is taking care of this, the first AD will take care of everything else. When the director is answering questions here, the first AD will make sure nothing goes wrong over there. The second AD helps manage everything off the set. it takes a long time to make a movie. You can't expect all like 500 people to always be on set all the time. So the second AD helps to make sure that people are taken care of when they're not on set. Usually they're at a hotel. Sometimes they might go on a short road trip, depending on how much time they have. And if it's a really big production, oh, I think I got that. Sorry, I got that wrong. The second AD takes care of people when they're near the set, but they're not away. So, like an actor, when it's not their turn to act, they might go rest in their trailer. And if they need anything, they will talk to the second AD. Now, if it is a really big film, then they need a place to keep everybody when they're not working. And that is the responsibility of the second assistant director, more and more commonly called the third assistant director. So this would be the person in charge of the hotel, of the transportation, that kind of thing. Also working closely with the director are the screenwriters. These are the people who write the scripts, but it's the director who makes the final decision. So usually what happens is to get a movie going, you start with the script. So the screenwriter writes something and they try to sell it to a company. In order to sell it, in order to make a good sale, to get a good price, they need to show that some important people are interested in this story, and therefore that if the company pays for the story, it will actually turn into a movie. And so often screenwriters will try to work with directors directly and then approach the company. Or they may talk to like a big star. And if the star is interested, then they might go to the company. Sometimes a movie is bought without a script. And usually that happens if a director, a really big director, has an idea and has convinced a number of actors to go along with the idea. Therefore, to the company, it looks like this movie will be made, even if there's no story yet. But screenwriters are usually quite important. Now, um, I teach literature. I think words are important. Hollywood disagrees. Screenwriters will often have to write a whole film and sell it before they make money. They might go to a company and the company says, I like the basic idea, but I think this part doesn't work, that part doesn't work, that part doesn't work. Why don't you give me another draft? And the screenwriter will go home, take another 6 weeks to rewrite the thing, come back, and only after the company agrees to buy the script will they make money. So being a screenwriter is not a very stable job. Let's put it that way. Also, it's the director who makes the final decision. So let's say they start making the movie. The screenwriter meets with the director reads the script, and the director has some ideas. They might think, again, like, I like the story, but if I want to make the movie, I think this part should be like that. I think this should be changed. And so the screenwriter has to keep adjusting the script according to the director's ideas. And the director will also talk about the characters with the actors, because the actors are the people who actually have to perform. And the actors may have ideas. So the screenwriter has to adjust the script based on the actors' ideas. It's a whole thing. I don't recommend getting into screenwriting. Some other people that the director will work with, the executive producers. Now, you will notice the next section is called production. So why are the executive producers here and not in the production department? The executive producer title is given to somebody who has some kind of influence on the movie. It's not exactly part of the filmmaking process. So there are different reasons why someone might be given the executive producer title. One reason is money. This person who is very rich has personally paid you $5 million to help you make this movie. Then, of course, you should give them some credit. And one way to do this is to give them executive producer. Some other situations include maybe this person is a big filmmaker and they give you lots of advice. Or when you have some work in progress, you go to this person and you ask them for advice. Maybe they help you in one or two key parts of the filmmaking process. Maybe they know a big star and they bring the star onto the project. All of these are reasons why someone might get an executive producer title. So you can see it's more like an advisor. It's not really an official job. Next, we have technical experts, etc. So the director has a vision. The director has an idea. But a good idea has to fit with reality in some sense. It doesn't have to be exactly accurate, but it has to feel like it could work. That's where the technical experts come in. If you make a history film, you probably want to talk to a historian. If you make a film in space, you probably want to talk to somebody at NASA. So these are the people in this group. All of these people work directly with the director so that the director can decide the direction of the film and the feeling that the film will give the audience. So here I have two vocabulary terms, two different kinds of direction. So, a director has to give instructions, right? This is called direction. There are usually on set, there are two kinds of direction. Acting direction is what we usually think of when a director says, to an actor, right? Oh, that was okay, but I want you to try it this way, or maybe say the words in a different way. He's giving or he or she is giving instructions to the actor. But there's also camera direction when the director says, okay, move the camera this way, and I want you to zoom in and then you go up. How do you use the camera is something that the director can also decide. So when we're watching a movie and we think, wow, that actor did a great job, think about the director. Or when you say, wow, I love how they used the camera, think about the director. Okay, questions about directing? Okay, moving on. No, 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 we should take a short break. I'll say one thing and then I'll let you have a short break. The director is in charge of how the movie looks and feels. The producer is in charge of making sure they can actually make the movie, that they have enough money, that they have enough time, that they have a good schedule, they have everything they need to actually make it. So, if the filmmaking process goes wrong and they run out of money or they run out of time or something else happens, it is the producer's job to fix that or sometimes to convince the director to change some parts of their idea. When I divide you into short groups, you will have to choose a group leader, and the group leader will be the producer. So your group leader doesn't have to make all the decisions, but they do have to make sure you finish the project. Okay, let's take a short break.
那其实你爱看动漫的哪里？我的我原来的。
Okay, apparently class has begun. So let's continue. Production. So as I said, the producer is responsible for making sure that the film gets made on time and on budget. Now, again, for bigger films, the producer, one person is not enough. So the producer also has people working under them. Depending on how big the production is, there will be different layers of management. So, going from the bottom, if it's a small film and they just need one other person, they will hire a production assistant or PA. If it's a bit bigger and they need more people, they will hire associate producers. And if it's really big, they will hire a production manager. And if it's a huge blockbuster film, they will also hire a line producer. So it's just different layers of management. And what each person does depends on the film. Production assistants, most commonly, go fetch coffee, go buy paper, go take receipts, that kind of thing. Whereas a line producer, 可以帮我关后门吗？谢谢。So production assistants usually do the lower level stuff. Whereas if you go all the way up to a line producer, the line producer could be in charge of the whole film, and the producer would be like a go-between with the company. So it's kind of like the producer is the responsibility of the producer would be to talk to the company, and then the line producer is the person who actually manages the film. It depends on each production. Okay, so next we have the production designer. This is the person who works with the director to design the environment. So I was talking about what do you see in the image? Everything that is not the actor and that the actor will not use. Everything else is called production design. Technically speaking, the person who actually designs the set is called the art director, but the production designer makes sure that there is a decision made and that they do know what the set will look like. They do know what the environment will look like and feel like. And so the production designer has to work with the director to make sure they have the director's ideas. They also have to work with the cinematographer. We'll get to that later, but this is the person in charge of the camera. They have to make sure that the environment looks good on camera. As I'm sure you know, something can look really great in real life, but not on camera. So the production designer has to make sure it looks good on camera also. If they're shooting outdoors, then the production designer has to work with the location manager. The location manager helps the director choose where to shoot outdoors. And once they have a location, the location manager has to go to the owner of the place and buy the right to make a movie there. This is the question of copyright. When something is put in an image and the image is used to make money, there are rights involved. So the location manager has to make sure that they do have the right to make a movie in that place. Sometimes it would just be talking with like the owner of a shop. Sometimes you have to talk to the mayor of a city if you have to like shut down a street to make a movie, like a car chase or something. Yeah, if you make a movie in a big city and you need a whole street, you have to talk to the city, and then you have to talk to each of the businesses on that street. Because if you shut down the street, nobody can buy their products. So usually what happens is the location manager will negotiate with the city And the city will say, okay, you can shoot here for 3 days. Then the location manager will go to each individual business and say, hey, I want to close off this street for 3 days. How much money will you lose? And I'll pay you that money. And then the business owner will give an incredibly high number and they'll start negotiating how much to pay. So location manager is very important. If you don't get the rights to shoot somewhere, if it's a government right, then the government could give you a fine. If it is a private commercial right, then the business owners can sue you for loss of income. So this is very important. Um, especially in some European cities, did you know, for example, it is illegal to take a picture of the Eiffel Tower? You cannot do it unless you apply first. Now, the city usually does not sue people who take pictures. That would be stupid. But the law is you have to apply before you take a picture of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. So there are rights involved. Right. So the production designer has to work with the location manager. Once they have the location, it probably will not look exactly like what the director wants. So the production designer can then go in and change things. And this is where things get exciting. If you want to make a history movie, a historical movie set in the past, you might redesign the inside of a store. You might find some old cars and put them on the street. If you're making a movie in the winter, but the story is in the summer, you might want to paint the grass green. This is something that people actually do. They hire some painters and they paint the grass to make it look greener. Or sometimes if you're making a romantic comedy and you want to make the location feel more romantic, you might do what's called a water down. Before you shoot, you spray the whole area with water so that it looks wet. It's not rainy, it's just wet. And that looks better on camera. And then, of course, after you're finished shooting in that location, you are responsible. The location manager is responsible for returning everything to the way it was before. So if you redesign the inside of a store, you now have to undesign it and return everything back. If you put up like a fake building or like some fake traffic lights, you have to take those down and bring them away. Anyone ever tell you making movies costs money? It costs money. Okay. Next we have grips and gaffers. These are people who do the actual work when you make a movie. So grips are in charge of moving things. You have lots of equipment. If you're outdoors, you have generators. You have like boxes and boxes of materials. You have costumes, etc. Grips are in charge of moving stuff. So usually these are like the big hairy men on set. Gaffers are in charge of working with electricity, especially if you're outdoors, right? You need power. So you will have a generator. You will have really, really long power cords. You need to connect them to the cameras, to the lights, to the food trucks, to the actors' trailers so that they have air conditioning. Anything related to power, the gaffers will connect and will arrange. Fun fact, the lead gaffer, so like the person in charge of the gaffer team is called the best boy. I don't know why, but that's what they call them. Or best girl, if it's a woman. Then you have all the other people you need to make a movie. Caterers who provide food for everyone. Drivers to move people around. Medics in case there's a medical emergency. And other people, such as you will have a script supervisor. And the job of the script supervisor is to make sure that when you finish work today and you continue tomorrow, everything looks the same. The actor is wearing the same clothing. The makeup is in exactly the same place. The objects have not been moved. They have to make sure everything follows. There's no contradiction. In the early days, this job was usually done by a young woman, so the traditional job name is script girl. But today that's been changed to script supervisor and anyone else you need. So the vocabulary for this section, a production is this part of filmmaking. When you have cameras and you're using the cameras, this is called production. Making a film, you have three stages. Production is the middle. Before you pick up a camera, you have to know what you're doing. You have to have a story. You have to have people. You have to design everything. That's called pre-production in Chinese 前置. Production in Chinese 制作. And then after you put down the camera, you need to put the images together. You need to add sound. You need to add special effects. That is called post-production in Chinese 后置. So we're mostly talking about production here. Next one, the set. The set is the physical place where you use the camera. And related phrases are on set. So if you are in the place, you are on set. If you're not in the place, you are off the set. Next, some possible indoor locations. A soundstage is a big space indoors where you can control the air, the temperature, the wind. You can build your entire environment. You have complete control over what happens. This is a sound stage. These are big spaces. So, for example, Pinewood Studios in the UK, they use an old aircraft hangar. So, a place where you keep airplanes. That's how big the space is. They took away the airplanes and they turned it into a soundstage. A studio lot is an outdoor location that is still completely controlled. In Chinese, we call this 电影层. So it's outdoors. You see the sky, there's weather, but all of the buildings are fake. All of the doors and the roads are all fake. The only real thing is the weather. And it's called a studio lot because traditionally it was in a large open space near a film studio. And then the third one, location, is always an outdoor space. So if you're shooting somewhere outdoors, you are on location. It doesn't matter what kind of outdoors. You can be in the desert or you can be in Taipei. They're all on location. Okay, questions about production? Okay, next, let's move into acting. This is what I think most people focus on. But before you talk about acting, you have to talk about the actors. How do you choose the actor? That is the job of the casting director. Now, usually the biggest stars, the director will talk to them directly, will maybe write an email to invite them or whatever. But in a movie, you don't just have stars, right? You have hundreds of people, including the people in the background who just walk by and you don't know who they are. You can't even see their faces. Those are also actors. Very, very rarely will you see real people who are not acting in a movie. Every random person on the street is an actor. So, if you're shooting a movie in New York City and you have like a shot of the whole street, that'll take hundreds of actors. And so the casting director will work with different actor agencies to make sure they find the right people for all of these little roles. And sometimes even for the stars, maybe the director has an idea for the kind of person they want, but they don't know who they should find. The casting director may know some big stars that could fit the role. Okay, so once you have all of the actors, you put them together and they are the cast. Just like everybody who works at a place is called the staff, all of the teachers at a school are called the faculty. All of the actors put together are called the cast. So we also talked about what the actors look like. This is the job of the hair and makeup designers and the costume and wardrobe designers. So literally everything about an actor except their skin color can be changed. You can change somebody's skin color, but it's not politically correct and you'll get a very bad reception. But literally everything else can be changed. So they could have wildly different hair. They can even look like a different person, right? You'll see stories about how an actor like radically changed their appearance. They look like they're much fatter or they're much older. A lot of that is due to makeup. Or even if they're playing a monster and they don't want to use CGI, they want to use it, they want to make the monster look real. The actor would have to go through like 4, 5, 6 hours of makeup just to look like a real monster. Costume and wardrobe, this is the clothing that they wear, also including accessories like earrings, necklaces, hats. You might think like these are small things, but really what you put on your body, even the smallest thing, can make a big difference um, as to how the audience feels about this character. Like if you have a character who is like a gangster, if they wear one ring, it feels very different than if they wear 5 rings. So even the small things can make a big difference. Next, you have people related to the actual acting. If the actor needs to talk in a specific way, there will be dialect coaches. This is very interesting. We know that actors can change their accents for a movie. What you may not know is this is a very scientific process. It's not like if you go to a party and you like pretend you're somebody else, you put on like a funny sounding voice. It's very different. We regular people, if we want to talk differently, we'll like listen and then we'll try to create those sounds. An actor with a dialect coach will begin with the shape of the mouth and will like change the way that the actor uses their mouth to create sounds. And only after those movements are correct will they then focus and try to create the target sounds. So like when Kristen Stewart was playing Princess Diana in Spencer a few years ago, it was the first time that she had to really focus on a new accent. And so in interviews, she kept talking about how it was a physical process. Like her mouth would literally feel different when she's speaking with a British accent. Stand-ins. So actors don't just have to perform, they have to perform for a camera. The camera is not always ready. Sometimes you need to change position. Sometimes you need to change memory cards. Sometimes you want to move the lights from here to there or whatever. It takes time to set up the camera. During that time, you don't want to force your big star actor to just stand there. So instead, the producer will hire some stand-ins. So like before they begin shooting, they want to check the lighting. They want to make sure it looks good on camera. They don't want to bother the big stars for that. So they hire a random person who looks like the star to stand in the place and let the light shine on them to make sure they look good on camera. And when all of that's fine, then they grab the big star and let them act in that place. You also have other reasons for stand-ins. Maybe a big actor says, I don't want to do sex scenes. Okay. But if the director wants a sex scene, they'll find somebody who looks like that actor for the more revealing shots. And then the big star only has to do like the dialogue or the kissing or whatever. Sometimes something might be more dangerous. Sometimes something might be far away and you can't really see who it is anyway. You don't want to pay a lot of money for a big actor to be really small in the image. So again, you hire somebody who looks like the actor to do that part. And then any other necessary people related to the actors or acting, including acting coaches. You might think they're actors, they know how to act. Why would you need an acting coach? For the same reason that an NBA team, one of the best basketball players in the world, also needs a coach. Because it's not about how good you are, it's about how well you can do this particular job. So their actors will also have acting coaches. Singers will have singing coaches. It's all the same thing. You need a guide. Okay, and then some vocabulary. A line is a sentence of dialogue spoken by an actor. So their dialogue is composed of lines, individual lines. Can you say the line again? Can you repeat the line? What's my line? A specific sentence. How an actor says the sentence is called the delivery. It's not just reading, right? The way you say something can be very different. And different ways of saying the same words can give very different meanings. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. All carry different meanings. So that's the delivery. It's the way an actor interprets a line when they say it. What meaning are they putting into the line? An acting choice is how we talk about what an actor does in relation to a character. So like something that an actor, like some kind of movement, or even a line delivery. When an actor makes a choice, they're telling us how they understand their character. And usually when we talk about acting choices, it's usually negative. Usually it's like, oh, I didn't know you could make that choice, or I didn't expect him to make this choice. Like it's kind of surprising, maybe good, but most often just kind of weird. For example, you guys know the actor Bradley Cooper, white guy, beard, Bradley Cooper. Yeah. So he once did a play on stage. He did a revival of The Elephant Man. And the idea is the dude has a physical disability that makes him kind of look like an elephant. Traditionally, they would use makeup, but not for Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper, for the whole time, he basically he used his arms to look like he had a long nose for the whole play, like doing like this kind of thing for the whole play. A very strange choice, but that is an acting choice. Or like, have you guys seen Tom Cruise's early movies? Like he's a big action star today, but like he used to do more serious drama movies also. And like, have you guys seen the original Top Gun from the 1980s? So he has an enemy, right? Iceman. And there's a scene where they're about to get into a fight in the locker room, and like the character playing Iceman is like very aggressive and tall and blonde, and Tom Cruise is of course short and not blonde, and so like it's like they're about to fight, but then the way that Tom Cruise's character delivers the final line defuses the tension. It sort of makes the fight go away, and that's because of an acting choice. Not because of what he says. It's how he says it in his body language. Next is voice acting. We usually talk about this in animation when you can only hear the actor's voice. A lot of people don't know this. Voice acting is a very specific skill. There's so much information that we get from our eyes and not from our ears. It takes a lot of skill to be able to give us all of that information only through our ears. So like sometimes a big animation will hire some big stars to provide the voice of the characters, and it will feel very bad because these are regular actors, not voice actors. A really good voice actor can make you feel all the feelings without seeing a person. And it's really sad that most of the greatest voice actors are not more famous. And then finally, we have physical acting. So these are acting choices using body language. Whether it is in a specific scene, the way they use their bodies, or throughout the whole movie, the way they walk or the way they look at people, how they use their hands. This is called physical acting. So a good example of the difference between um, physical acting and acting through line delivery, you can think about comedy. Comedy, you can broadly divide it into uh, like a dialogue heavy comedy where the jokes are in the dialogue, what they say, and physical comedy where people keep falling down and running into each other and like getting into accidents. Okay, the next part is the cinematography or the camera department. This is the department in charge of using the camera, in charge of creating images. In today's digital world, you may not need a camera to create an image, but it's always this department that is in charge of creating the images. The leader is called the director of photography, or DP, sometimes just called the cinematographer. And they do the same job as the director, except they only focus on the images. So they also have to work with the director to make sure it looks like what the director wants. And then they also oversee other people to make sure that they use the camera correctly, they set up the lights correctly, and they get the image that the director wants. For a small production, the DP would hold the camera themselves. But for a big production, the DP the job might look more like a mini director. It's like they will also stand in front of the monitors and they will also like direct other people to hold the camera. So it depends on the size. Usually, DPs are very, very knowledgeable about specific parts of cameras, like the type of camera, how big, what kind of image, what kind of focal length, all of these things. Directors don't have to know everything. They just have to know what they want. So, um, yes, the people who actually hold the cameras are called camera operators. And then the people who set up the lights are the lighting technicians. Very rarely will you have somebody just pick up a camera and start shooting. Because again, everything you see is a choice, including the lights. Where are the lights coming from? What color are they? How strong are they? Do they change? So the lighting technicians will help create the light that you need. Sometimes this can get pretty crazy. For example, uh, I know there's one movie, a big budget blockbuster movie. They needed to save time. So they decided to shoot daytime scenes at night, outdoors. How do you do that? You buy a million big lights, you build these huge arc structures, and you put the lights on top of it. You create a fake sky. And so the actors can act like they're in the middle of the day. So this job can sometimes get pretty crazy. Also, there are two different ways to change the color of the lights. You can do it in post-production using a computer, or the traditional way is you would add a layer of like gel, different colored gel onto the lights. And you can adjust where you put these lights. You can adjust how much color you want to add. That's also the responsibility of the lighting technician. Next, the focus puller. When you use your phone to take a video, your phone will automatically detect where to put the focus, right? Which parts of the image should be clear and which don't matter and can be very blurry and fuzzy. Film cameras don't do that because some directors, for some images, they don't want to be in focus. They want to be out of focus. They want the main thing to look blurry. So in order to preserve that freedom, film cameras don't grab the focus. You have to individually adjust, like how far away do you want the image to be. That is the job of the focus puller. So once they have the actors and the cameras in the positions that they want, then the focus puller will go in and measure the distance between the actor and the camera and will write down the distance so that they can then invite the big star in to stand in that place, do the acting, and then make sure that they have the image clearly. And this job can also get kind of crazy because remember, the camera can move. So if you have like this really long scene where the camera moves here and there and it revolves around or whatever, the focus puller has to know in every moment how far away is your target from the camera. This job has gotten a little bit easier with digital cameras. In the past, when you shoot on real celluloid film, you don't know what you have. You can't see the film. You have to send it to a laboratory and they have to develop the film into something you can play. And then once you get those back, you can see what you have shot. Those are called what they return that you can watch. Those are called dailies in Chinese, 毛片. It's a very raw record of the images that you have. But with digital cameras now, you can see it immediately. So if you get the focus wrong, you don't have to waste a whole day. You can just correct it immediately. Next is the colorist, or also known as the color timer. This person adjusts the color during post-production. So after they have all of the images, if the director says, I want it to look a little darker, or I want it to look a little more green, that's the job of the color timer. Now, why is it called a timer? Because in the old days, in order to take a film, a strip of film, and to make it show its colors, you have to use like a tub of chemicals, right? So you would put the film in the chemicals, and the longer they were in the chemicals, the stronger the colors would be. So the colorist had to time how long should they be in these chemicals. So the job is called a color timer, even though today it's all adjusted with computers. Okay, so that's image creation and some vocabulary for you. The frame is the boundary of the image. It decides what is inside the image and what is outside the image. One of the key skills that you need as an actor is you need to be able to see where the frame is when you are performing. You have to know whether you're going to leave the image or not. Where is the boundary? So if it is in the image, it is in frame. If it is outside the image, it is out of frame. And then we have some distances. A close-up is a shot that focuses on one thing, usually the face, sometimes the hands, sometimes one specific object. It is focused on one thing. A long shot, or sorry, a mid-length shot is usually a shot that focuses on a person from the waist up. It's the most common type of shot. It simulates the experience of talking to a person. Like if somebody is standing here and I'm talking to them, my attention is probably not on their shoes, right? It's probably on their face, and then I can also kind of see what they're wearing above the waist. But like below the waist, I'm probably not very clear unless I actually look. So a mid-length shot simulates an actual human interaction. And then a long shot is anything that's further away. So you can also have like a super long shot. Like if you're uh, uh, in a skyscraper and you're shooting somebody on the street, that would be a super long shot. Okay, questions about cinematography? Great, okay, next, editorial. This is editing. You have a design, you have people, they have acted, you have images. Now you have to put the images together. And that is the job of the editor. The editor usually works very, very closely with the director. How closely? They will sit together and the director will say, okay, this one and this one, put those together. No, 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 a little earlier, no, a little later, cut. And the editor is basically the director's hands. So sometimes a director will edit themselves. They'll just do it themselves if they have the experience, if they know how. But often they will still hire an editor because not every scene is equally important, I'm sorry to say. Some scenes don't require the director to be sitting right there telling you how to do it. And in that case, the editor can just do it themselves. Also, a good editor will have lots of experience. They will know what makes for a good combination. And so having a good editor can also give the director some good suggestions also. Um, Editing. So there are different things to think about when you put images together. Within the same, hmm, I'll talk about this using the vocabulary. There's a lot of vocabulary. Okay, so in this case, the frame is a single image. Above, we were talking about the camera frame, the boundary of the image. It's the frame. But if you talk about a frame, this is one single image. You've seen like strips of film, right? It's like little squares of pictures. Each picture is one frame. The normal projection speed, like when you play the film, the regular speed is 24 frames per second. So every second, 24 images will fly by. And of course, you can play it faster or play it slower to create different effects. Footage. All of the actors put together are called the cast. All of the recorded images put together is called the footage. It's called footage because this is talking about traditionally how long the total length of your film is. Not the complete film, like how many feet of film have you recorded? We're using feet, not meters, because Hollywood, Americans use feet. So it's footage, like the total length of all of the images that you have. Okay, one take is when the camera starts recording all the way to when the camera stops recording. That is one take. They can be short if you have a so-called insert shot where you have a quick close-up to focus on one thing. You can maybe keep it for 1 or 2 seconds. It could be very long. If you've seen movies that follow a person through the whole room, it can take 2 or 3 minutes. Either way, from when the camera starts recording to when the camera stops recording is one take. Now, usually directors will shoot multiple takes uh, so that they can consider different possibilities. Maybe they want the actor to perform in different ways. Maybe they want to adjust the lighting. Or maybe they just think that the first time wasn't very good. They want the actor to try again. So the editor and the director will have many options. The one that they choose to put in the final film, that is a shot. So when we talk about a movie, if we're not talking about these different possibilities, if we're just talking about this part of the film, we'll say, oh, that was a great shot, or this shot looks kind of dark, right? It's what's in the final film. Now, uh, most of the time, for a single event, there will be more than one shot. For example, if you have two people talking, you will have one shot looking at that person, and then when the other person responds, you will have one shot of the other person. And then they'll go back and forth throughout the conversation. So when you put different shots together, the connection is called a cut. You can think of it as a connection. You can think of it as a disconnection because you're changing where the camera is. So it is a cut, or if you go from one shot to another shot, you are cutting between shots. And there are different ways to connect. Traditionally, you would have a dissolve cut. So like in a PowerPoint, right? One slide would grow darker, and then the next slide would brighten back up again. 淡出. Most commonly today, we have smash cuts. Just one shot immediately ends, and then the next shot immediately begins. That's called a smash cut. Sometimes you will have a series of cuts. Like if you're shooting an action scene, you have different angles on how the actor fights, and you have many cuts within a very short time. Those are fast cuts or fast cutting. So we have all of these different ways to describe how to join images together, how to end one shot and begin another. Now, when you put all of these shots together to form a complete action or a complete event, that is called a scene. So one scene has many shots with many cuts between the shots, and each shot is the selection from many different takes. So in order to present a scene, you would have a sequence of shots, right? Multiple shots. That's called a sequence. And then finally, one specific type of sequence is the montage sequence. This is usually to speed things up. Most commonly when somebody is training for if they're an athlete and they're training for a sport, or like somebody is learning how to do something, you will have a shot of them learning to do this, and then you cut to them learning to do that, and then you cut to them slowly growing in their ability. It's a sequence of fast cuts that shows time passing. Uh, in Chinese, we call this 蒙太奇. The reason it's called a montage, and the reason I'm pronouncing this word in a very French way, is because it is French. Montage in French just means editing. For some reason, the people in Hollywood decided to give it a special meaning, where you use editing to help time move faster. Okay, questions about editing? Okay, so for your short films, you probably won't have lighting. You probably won't have like catering and food, but you will definitely have to edit. And I have to warn you, editing takes a long time. You're probably going to spend most of your time editing. You might think, oh, it's just ending one scene and beginning the next scene. How hard is that? Go back and watch any movie, any one scene, and notice how many shots they use. In Hollywood today, the average length of a single shot is under 5 seconds. The average length for a movie is 90 minutes. How many shots do you have? How much editing do you have to do? So editing will take up most of your time, just a warning. Yeah, so it's not just within a scene, you also have to decide when to end one scene and begin the next scene. Okay, next we have sound. Sound is often overlooked. People like to focus on the acting and the imagery and the editing, but sound is one of the most important parts of film because when you look at something, you might think, is that real? Did that really happen? What's going on? Is the acting good? Is it bad? But when you hear a sound, you don't really think about those questions. You think, oh, yeah, there's a sound. That's it. Sound is a more direct connection to how you feel about a movie. This department is headed by a sound designer, works with the director to design the sound. There are different parts of the sound. A Foley artist creates sound effects, So, like in a movie, when you see somebody close a door, you need the sound of the door closing. The Foley artist creates that sound. And you might think, why don't you just record the sound of a door? Why do you need to create a new sound? It's because if you think about it, a lot of sounds in real life don't really sound very special. Have you tried closing different doors to see if they sound how they sound? They can sound very different. There is no one door that closes with a door closing sound. Another example, have you ever had to punch somebody? If you watch a movie, the sound is usually right? But when you hit somebody, does it actually make that sound? No, that's sound design. When you walk across the floor, I'll walk for you. Do you hear that? No. Maybe you heard a little bit, but you couldn't hear my shoes. So if you want to emphasize that the actor is wearing fancy shoes, you would add the sound of their footsteps. Sound design is not real. It is realistic. It is making you feel like it is real. The most famous example here is the sound of a horse walking down the street. Is often created by taking two halves of an empty coconut, 椰子, and smashing them together. So sound design, Foley artists, they really are artists. They really do create works of art. Um, why are they called Foley? Because the first person to realize you have to do this was named Jack Foley. So they named the job after him. Next, you have ADR, or automated dialogue replacement. Have you ever tried to record a video outdoors? Most of what you hear is wind, background noise, cars, right? So why don't you hear that in a movie? Because they don't use the real sound. Especially when you shoot on location, you capture the images, and then if you do want the wind or you do want cars, you use a Foley artist to add those sounds. And then how do you hear the actors? How do you hear what they say? You take the actors, you put them into a recording studio, you play a shot or a sequence, um, and the actor grabs the right timing and repeats the line for the movie. They have to act twice, once with their bodies, the second time with their voice. If you have watched older Hong Kong movies, like wuxia movies, you will know what I'm talking about. Like you can see, like when the actors move their mouths, it doesn't fit the sound. And that's because they're recording their sound later. So the ADR engineer helps to do this. Now, sometimes you will use live sound when you have total control indoors on a sound stage, no distractions, no background sounds. Then you can set up some hidden microphones and you can record the actual sound. But most of the time you would add it later. Okay, let's take a short break and then we'll talk about music. Yeah, the number of students is changing, so by that the number of students is still changing. So I'll make that decision 2 weeks later. Okay, let's continue. So we talked about sound effects, things to make it sound more realistic. Now let's talk about the background music, which is called the score. Who writes the score? The composer. But today, some composers don't do the work themselves. Some composers have a whole studio, and they have apprentice composers and assistant composers. So people like Hans Zimmer, the composer for Christopher Nolan, who created all those bang sounds. He doesn't compose music himself anymore. What he does is he talks with the director, he figures out what the feeling of the film should be. He writes up a little bit of music to give the style and the direction, and then he hands the job to his assistants and his apprentices. And when they're finished, they bring their work to him and he puts it together, refines it a little bit, and then gives it to the director. So it's like he's using ChatGPT, except not AI, but real people. There are two ways film composers work. One, the director will finish making the film. It will have everything but the music, and they will give it to the composer, and the composer will create music for the film. The second way is the director will be in contact with the composer all throughout production. The director will provide samples from the film or maybe share the script and treat the composer as part of the filmmaking team. And so the composer will work to create music as the film is being created. And in this way, sometimes the director will make a few edits in order to fit the film with the music if the director thinks the music is really good. Very, very rarely you will have a director work with a composer and the composer is very inspired by the story and they'll go off and create all of this great music, and then the director, while they make the film, can pick and choose from different parts of the music to use. But that's very, very rare. Usually the film comes first. Okay, now you have sound effects and you have a score. Now you need to combine it with the images. And that is the job of the sound editor and the sound mixer. The sound editor deals with the order and the length of the sound. So just like a regular editor works with images, when to start, when to stop, the sound editor works with sound. What do you put here, when to start, when to stop? The sound mixer adjusts the volume of each individual sound for each moment of the film. So literally, the sound mixer will go through the film frame by frame, image by image, and adjust the sound based on what the director needs. Think about it. For any scene, you have an actor talking, you have a sound effect, you have background noise, and you have music. That's a lot of sound. Which one is most important? Which one is second important? That's the job of the sound mixer, to make sure you hear the really important sounds clearly, and then the less important sounds are kept in the background. Sometimes the priorities can shift very quickly. Let's say in the middle of a dialogue scene, suddenly there's an explosion. Then the priority shifts from the dialogue to the sound effects. So the sound mixer will, at that moment, change the volume of these two. Or let's say you're watching a horror movie, and as the actors are talking, you want to make the audience more and more scared, like a surprise is going to happen. Then you would slowly raise the volume of the creepy music until it's almost the same as the dialogue. And you want to do it slowly so that the audience doesn't feel like it's too sudden. Sometimes a director will go crazy and decide that the actors are not the most important sound. For example, Christopher Nolan will do this in some big action scenes. Have you guys seen Interstellar? Shinji Shaoying. So when they launch the rocket and leave Earth, it gets harder and harder to hear what the actors are saying because the sound mixer has made the sound effects louder than the dialogue. When people started complaining, Christopher Nolan said, "No, that was intentional. I don't want you to hear the actors." So that's a choice. And that's the choice would be carried out by the sound mixer. This is why if you watch the Oscars, there is a different prize for sound editing and sound mixing. Sound editing is putting the sounds together and choosing which sounds to use. Sound mixing is adjusting the volume levels so that you feel what the director wants you to feel. You hear what the director wants you to hear. Okay, questions about sound? So even sound is all the result of a choice. Finally, we have the effects department. Effects can be broadly divided into two types. If the effect is done in camera, which means it really happens and you're recording a normal image, those are special effects. Now, when I say really happened, sometimes it only looks like it happens because you chose the perfect angle to capture the image. Have you seen the pictures of street artists like drawing something on the ground and it looks like a big hole, like a crack in the ground, but it's actually just a picture? Those are called trick angles and forced perspective. Because of this specific angle, it looks like something could fall in, but there's nothing there. It's just a picture. Movies do this a lot, especially older movies when they didn't have computers and they needed to convince you that this really is happening. They might combine the second one, models, like tiny miniature objects, and then use an angle to combine it with the actors so that it looks like the actors are the same size as the models. Um, Explosions. Yes, those are usually real explosions because nothing beats a real explosion. It is very hard to create a realistic fake explosion. But I list explosions separately because blowing things up is an art form. If you just want to make a bomb and destroy things, that's not too hard. But if you want to make the explosion look good on camera, that's a different story. Have you guys seen a movie called The Hurt Locker? It's about American soldiers in Iraq going around defusing bombs. So in a more realistic explosion, you don't usually see a ball of fire. In a realistic or in a real explosion, the big thing is the force. How much power is hitting you? Because that's what you want an explosion to do. You want it to destroy things. You don't really care how good it looks. So if you're creating an explosion for the film, you have to add stuff. You have to add different chemicals. You have to control the explosion so that you reduce the power. It's not too bad, but you increase the fire and the smoke so that it looks good. So explosions themselves are hard to do. So today, now that we have computers, you create a movie explosion, and then using a computer, you add more fire, you add more smoke, you add stronger colors, that kind of thing. Okay, and then the next one is stunts, in Chinese 特技. So this is anything that could be dangerous. And this is another reason why you might want to hire a stand-in instead of using the real actor. You want somebody who has experience doing dangerous things. So the stunt department will have a leader called a stunt coordinator, and then we'll have actors who actually perform the stunts. The stunt coordinator doesn't just coordinate, the stunt coordinator designs the stunt. The director tells them what they want it to look like. The stunt coordinator will decide, is there a way to do this? And if there is a way to do this, how do we do it? And we'll design the mechanism, we'll design where people go, what they do, which parts are dangerous, which parts are not dangerous, what the stunt actors have to pay attention to. And then sometimes the stunt coordinator will actually direct the stunt. So like when the camera is set up, the lighting is fine, then the director will let the stunt coordinator call lights, camera, action, and then after they record it, then the stunt coordinator will give it back to the director. Stunts, stunt coordinators love to say a well-designed stunt is not dangerous. There should be no moment where an actor has to be afraid for their life. And that's true. If at any moment an actor might die during a stunt, that's not a good stunt. However, stunts are dangerous if you don't follow the instructions perfectly. If you didn't do enough training and you forget in the moment what you're supposed to do, if your aim is a little off, people could get hurt. And that's why we have dedicated stunt coordinators. Um, Now, related to stunt coordinators, one of the newest parts of filmmaking, I think I should put this up with the actors. Um, we now have somebody among these necessary people. We now have somebody called an intimacy coordinator. So any scene where the two actors maybe have to pretend like they're having sex, or they have to do romantic things or very intimate things with each other, now films will hire somebody to help them navigate these emotions, make sure that both people or everybody knows exactly what's going to happen. They know what is intentional and what, if something else happens, it's an accident. Just to make sure everybody knows what's going on, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And if it's not physical intimacy, if it's emotional intimacy, the intimacy coordinator will also work with the actors to make sure they know what their character is supposed to be feeling and how they're going to express those feelings. Again, to make sure that nothing weird happens. So that's an intimacy coordinator. Okay, so yeah, those are in-camera effects. The second kind of special effect, or from the effects department, the second kind is called visual effects. These are added after you create the image. So another name is post-production effects. Most commonly, CGI, right? The last one. You use a computer, you create the environment, you create stuff out of thin air. But not just CGI. Lots of other stuff is added after you finish using the camera. The most common is actually opening and closing titles. Right at the beginning of the movie, you see the title, you see the director, the actors. You have to add that after the movie, you finish making the movie. And then the end credits, right? At the end, where you see a list of everybody who worked on the movie, you also have to create that. Well, you don't have to. Now there are companies that can do this for you. You give them the list of people and they will create it for you. But sometimes opening titles and end credits can be very interesting. Like they could be made to look very artistic. They could be combined with some major symbols or themes of the movie. It's not just a list. Then you have blue screen or green screen compositing. This is how you can replace images. I'm sure you've heard these terms before, blue screen, green screen. So what happens is the reason it's blue or green, especially that kind of blue and that kind of green, is you want to choose a color that is not very common. Because what you're going to do is you're going to put the actor there, the actor will perform, and then later on you're going to take the image, put it in a computer, and tell the computer, please replace everything that is green and turn it into this other thing I have prepared. So it's replacing everything of that color with maybe you shot something else as a background and you want to put the background and use it to replace the green. Or maybe you have other stuff you want to put in there that you have shot beforehand. The most common use of blue screen and green screen is actually the news. When you watch the news and they tell you the weather, how do they show you that map? The traditional way is the weather person will stand in front of a green screen and they'll replace the green with the weather map, and the weather person can see themselves in the image, so they look at themselves pointing to whatever is supposed to be there, but in fact it's just green. This works better than having an actual screen. First of all, if you have a traditional screen, like an older, like big box TV, um, because of the way that a TV camera records, the screen will flash. I don't know if you've seen this on the news when they record like a computer screen in the background, the screen will keep flashing. Okay, so then use an LED screen, right? A digital screen. You can, but a digital screen can sometimes glitch. It can stick. There can be artifacts. It could crash. So really the best thing to do is still use green screen. Um, Although I do have to say today, when you make movies, they have this really new technology. This is really cool. So um, instead of a green screen, and then you replace the images later, you put up a really big wall of LED screens and you replace the image as you are shooting. So the background is, the actor does see what the background should be. They can't interact with it because it's on a screen, but they don't have to pretend. They can actually see it. But of course, this is very expensive. The images have to be very, very high quality. And you can't really change things. It's harder to change it if you think there's something wrong later. It's not impossible. With computers, you can do literally anything, but it's harder. Um, right, next one, rotoscoping. So blue screen, green screen is replacing everything of one color. Rotoscoping is you take the image, you put it in a computer, and you use your mouse or a digital pen to literally cut out what you want to replace. The benefit is it could be any color and it could be any shape. The disadvantage is you have to do this for every frame. Remember, 24 frames per second in a 90-minute movie. If you want to change something, you have to do it frame by frame. It's hard work. but it gives you more control over what you want to replace. Next, you have motion capture or mocap. I'm sure you've seen this before when a movie has like a CGI character, and you will have an actor put on like a green suit with dots on it with like a camera on their head, and they'll pretend to be like an animal or something. And then when you they put it in a computer and they replace that imagery with the CGI character. So the key to doing mocap is those dots. Usually what happens is they design the character to look like the actor who is playing the character, and they'll put dots on their face, dots on their heads, because each dot is a point that the computer can control. So using these dots, you can capture an actor's performance even if you change the appearance into an animal. So the dots are very important. And this gets to one of my favorite stupid stories. You guys know the movie Cats from a few years ago? There was a Cats movie. Nobody liked it. It had Taylor Swift in it. Um, and the reason that movie took so much work, they finished the movie on the day of the premiere. Like literally, the first time they played the movie was hours after they finished the movie. The reason it took so long is because the director is an idiot. He wanted, of course, if you make a movie about cats singing and dancing, you're gonna use CGI. So you should use motion capture, right? The director did not like the director asked the actors to put on the color costumes, but he didn't add dots. What this means is that when the animators had to actually create these CGI cats and match the faces to the actors' faces, they had to make sure that every frame matched the same points of the actor's face because there's no dots. They have to literally pick a place on the actor's face and make sure that place stays the same throughout every frame. It was, as I hear, hell. So the dots are important. And then finally, CGI. When I say CGI, you guys think like, oh, outer space, like, oh, science fiction. But let me tell you, every single movie today uses CGI. It could be a mid-budget, very realistic human drama. They're gonna use CGI to like clean up some of the background, adjust the color of the sky, make sure that fire looks like it's real fire, even though it is real fire. You want to make it look more realistic. Every movie uses CGI. My favorite example is I think in Avengers 1, they were shooting in New York City, right? Like, I remember they were fighting. Was it Avengers 1 or Avengers 2? Age of Ultron. Is that 1 or 2? 2. Okay, so yes, so they're shooting in New York City. Now, again, if you shoot in a big city, you need to control the streets. But controlling the streets is very expensive. So instead, what they did was they walled off a little part of the street, and the walls that they put up were green screen. And then like when instead of changing the shops, they put a layer of green screen over the shops. And they use CGI to replace everything. So when it looks like you can see 4 blocks down the street, no, that's CGI. When it looks like they're standing in the middle of a park, no, that's a wall. That's CGI. And like even later, when you get to like Captain Marvel, this got really out of hand. They're shooting indoors, but the only real thing is what the actor is wearing. Everything else is CGI. They're shooting in an office. It's an indoor scene. Nothing special is happening. It's not outer space. It's Nick Fury sitting in a chair, and they use CGI for the entire background because it's cheaper. You don't have to buy real things. You don't have to build real places. You can just slap a layer of green and then replace it with a computer. So yes, it's cheaper, but there's a downside. The reason that it's cheaper is because these computer animators are paid very low wages. Um, and the reason they're paid so low is because the business model for computer animators is by project. Each project, the film company will pay the animation company a set amount of money. And the animation company will guarantee that they can produce what the film company wants. Sounds good. But then what happens if the film company changes their mind? What if they say, no, 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 instead of indoors, we want this scene to be outdoors. Instead of a dragon, now we want a tiger. Then the animation company has to go back and redo everything at no extra cost because the contract says you pay us, we'll deliver. End of story. So that's why so many computer animators are getting burnout and like suffering from poor mental health. Because every time the film company changes their minds, they have to go back and redo everything. And they don't get paid more. The deadline is not extended. They just have to work harder and longer. This problem also applies to the video game world, not just movies. So like next time you play a really high quality video game, in your hearts, you should thank the animators. They work their butts off for that. Okay, and so like effects. The effects department is one of the most exciting departments because things are changing every year. I recently watched a documentary about how now they have something called a virtual set. In the past, either you have a real camera and you have real people doing real things, or you put everything in a computer and you do it in a computer. Now, you can have a location with real actors, but your camera is a virtual camera. The images that it records goes into an animation space. So you have real people in a real space, but then like everything you make is it's kind of like it's hard to describe this without showing you a video, right? But like it's like you're moving a stick around. And like if you have a real camera, all you see is a stick. But then if you put it into the computer, they have prepared a virtual environment where that stick turns into a lion and you see a lion moving around instead. So it's combining the real world and the virtual world. It's supposed to help actors better control the use of space and to help directors get a better idea of what it will look like when you put it in a computer. So like just really crazy stuff is happening in filmmaking. And the ubiquitous use of CGI is why at least one film scholar has said the true essence of film is animation. Cinema was born from cartoons, and now we're moving back into CGI animation. The middle part where you had real actors doing real stuff, that was simply because there was no other choice. But if you have other choice, animation is the logic of filmmaking. I don't know if I agree entirely with that, but I can see why he would say this. Because CGI is becoming uh, hard to escape. Okay, questions about the handout? Right. So when we watch movies, I hope you keep all of this in mind and like you try to understand the process of how they created this movie. Hopefully that will give you some ideas about what you can do to create your short film. Yeah, okay. So next week, please come on time. We're going to watch Day for Night. And then I'll talk about documentaries and animation. See you next week.